Hello all and welcome to the channel of Kingdom of Athalas and the world of Fellowmind books. Today we are starting a bit of a new set of videos on this channel where it is not going to actually be discussing the books, but it is going to be a more of a podcast style video focusing around some various interesting topics. And with me today, even though we are not on Facecam, is a good friend of mine who lives and hails from the lovely nation of Australia. If you would like to introduce yourself.
Hello. I am Muhammad Zaid. Basically, I live in Australia, but I am from Pakistan. Basically, came from there about 4 years ago. It was a fun trip.
So, we've. This has been started as a focus around primarily but not limited to young people, young adults, sort of a similar kind of ilk of our age groups. And the idea and notion of them following their passions as their careers or to merge a great interest they have into their work. The personal example that I have for that is with my books, where whilst I am passionate about the books, one of the biggest benefits about them is that I can basically incorporate almost all of my interests and passions into something that I love doing without it ever feeling like it feels forced. And if I remember from some of our conversations, whilst you're not there yet, you're looking to do something around engineering?
So I'm basically there now. So what started as a guy sitting in his like a boy sitting in his room watching an anime about some cars, got into like, I want to be an engineer. Oh, look at that. That car looks like, oh, it has engines and parts in it. I wonder what they're called. And that led up to about 10 years of study, and voila, here we are, a mechanical engineer. A, and a proper word that I would have now is a mechanical design engineer. Just to follow that, I was like, oh yeah, I'll build cars. Sadly, I didn't get to build cars, but still, pretty fun to say. Pretty good to do as well. Pretty fun is designing stuff.
So, just taking a step back from the actual specific career side for a second, what is, if you have one, your sort of overall opinion of how things are for people in like their 20s, their late teens at the moment? Because obviously we're from two different parts of the world. We have probably some quite different perspectives about that, and probably some things that are oddly similar. I wouldn't put it past it.
In that sort of thing, I would probably say it's more about following what you think is right. I know it's a bit hard for around this age group to basically get anywhere, but I would say from what I've seen is that people tend to people have passion. People have really good passion about all the stuff that they do, whatever they want to do. But somewhere along the line, the like at least in our side of in our part of the world, at least in the Middle East side, it's usually more driven by family values instead of anything else. So if your family doesn't approve of most things, that usually is a very good deal breaker for your dreams. Some do get fortunate, like myself, because my parents are like, "Oh, he's going to be an engineer," and voila, I was already interested in becoming an engineer, so that worked out pretty well. But a lot of people I have seen, even in Australia now, I have seen a few people here that do want to become and do things they love, but they are always bound by some unforeseen events or things that happens in their life and stuff like that, which basically causes them to lose a bit of interest of what they want to do and kind of lose aim. That's what my view on this is most of the time. At least from one, that's just my opinion. It might be different, but yeah, that's what I see.
Yeah, that's quite a fair point, and yeah, some from what I understand, obviously my knowledge of how things are over there outside of well the chaos we're sadly seeing at the moment is that I do know that families around the Middle East are hold quite important to values. And I think that also kind of stems into Southern Asia a bit as well. Um,
Yeah, it does. So the thing is, most of the time, as I said, my parents weren't that much aggressive towards me to become something. They were like, "Oh, he can do whatever he wants if he's good at it. If he's good at something, just let him do it," kind of thing. So I was never forced to do it, but I was just got into it. But yeah, it's pretty harsh. The thing I would say in our, at least in our side of the world, is people are always very competitive. And it's not the children that are competitive, it's the parents that are competitive. They're like, "Oh, his child is like doing that much. Why can't you do this?" And I've had this. I've seen this in my own family all around. So it's kind of deal what it is.
yeah, the one of the things, if I actually bring an element of my family into it, is that whilst it's not been something that I myself have been particularly pushed towards ever, I my family have worked in the or elements of it have worked in the care industry for several years, and the thing you see in an industry like that over here is sadly a sort of big lack in job retention, and there's all sorts of reasons why that is and everything. But one point that always sort of occurs to me from what I've seen and also what I've experienced from things like the job centre that's and job centres I know are in general not universally or globally rather liked by our sort of age groups, with aside from a couple of exceptions. But you see things like that, and it's almost very evident the type of people who have gone into that job because that's what they want to do, or it's something that they've been open to considering, instead of those who have literally just been pushed in there to get someone or some sort of group off their back. And yeah, that does reflect in job retention sometimes, or if it's not the job retention, then it's the quality of work because you're no matter how hard you work, you're always going to work harder in a career that you care about, one that you're passionate about, than you are one that, even if you do think, "Oh, I've been pushed into this, but I'm going to work hard anyway," you're still not going to do as well because there's a significant part of your mind that's always sat back there when you're working thinking, "I don't want to do this." And unfortunately, that sort of thing does end up kind of reflecting badly on the rest of us sometimes because it seems like we're just a generation or an age group that just doesn't want to work or things like that. But it's not true. It's just we have grown up in a world where there's lots of different opportunities. I mean, you've got people who you and I both watch on things like YouTube who have made full time careers out of YouTube. And it's like, whilst that's maybe not something that either of us particularly wanted to do, it's an indication of where those opportunities are. And it almost, we almost live in an age now where there are so many opportunities for young people to follow their passions and everything. I mean, I don't know what it's like over there, but over here we've talked about in the past about more and more young people going into self-employment, and it's like, and we know people who have started up small businesses doing things like 3D modeling and painting, and I mean, you're doing that as a side project now with your own 3D printer, and
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
just it just seems that whilst we are growing up in a world where we have all these opportunities, there are still, and I'm not going to point fingers at any particular group because these opinions can come from all over, but there's still people who turn around and don't know if it's because of old values or because of their personal experiences, but they still are not willing to give a lot of people a chance with their passions. Because, and yeah, I'm going to be honest, whilst I am doing something and working towards something that I absolutely love, and I have been, and I cannot stress enough how supportive so many people, including yourself, have been of what I'm doing. I it it still scares me. It still scares me that we're growing up in a world where we're having these opportunities, but then, as much as like back at school, we might be encouraged to follow them and everything. As soon as you get out of school, it's like people are turning around and saying, "No, don't listen to what you've just been studying over like last 7 years. You need to go and do this instead." And it's like, no, no, we don't. We're doing what we're doing, and we studied the subjects we were doing because that's the sort of way we wanted to go. And if something like what happened with me came out of left field that we decided to pursue now instead of holding off until later, because there's no guarantee that that later would ever come around, then yeah, it's like we chose what we studied because that's the direction we wanted to go in. We didn't choose that to then just suddenly drop it and then do something else instead. And I know that what I actually studied doesn't exactly line up with what I'm doing now, but when you look into detail at what I'm trying to do and the way I'm doing it, it starts lining up a little bit more. So I've still found a way to incorporate the things I studied into what I'm doing now. It just may not always look like that on the surface.
Yes, I would like to add to that. So basically, what I would say in this, that yes, people tend to get distracted, I would say, by things they are taught, and then all of a sudden you get into the real world and you don't even know what you're doing. Um, I would always say that uh, I'm a bit on the end spectrum of the age group, I would say, because I'm basically considered a young adult, more than a young adult now. So that would probably, in my case, have what I have seen at least here in Australia as well as back home as well, that if people are pushed towards what they don't want to do, they would do it, but they would never be happy and they would never find any progress in it. And what that does is basically slows them down to a crawl, which I have seen a lot of people. I have people that are been in the industry which I am in now, in the engineering industry, and they have been there for 20 years, 15 years, just sitting on one desk for all their time. They don't like doing it. They complain all the time about it, but they still do it because in our society it is considered that if you get enough money, it doesn't matter what job you're doing, which I think is kind of BS. You know, the in my
Yeah,
in
yeah,
my from what I've done. So you mentioned that I did started 3D printing. Yes, I did, and I just started that about like a year ago, and it is something that just sparked something in me while I was doing my job. The I already told you that I basically am changing jobs now. So my previous job that I am currently working, which I will be switching over from, they don't see future of things. Like it's literally the mindset of people that own the company have a mindset which is from the 1950s. They think if they don't give they should probably take everything they can from the employee and basically say that, yeah, this guy, we're paying him, that means he should give everything, even his life, to us, which is the mindset of the olden days, which doesn't actually work anymore in this world.
No, no, yeah, and that's
It doesn't. It
that
doesn't.
yeah,
And that brings me to the point of like the Centrelink. We have Centrelink here, which is, I think, the equivalent to Job Finder in the UK. So the Centrelink is basically a system where they basically give you money and basically find you a job so you can switch over and you're not unemployed. But from what I've seen, anything that you put down on that you want to do a job on, they always put you in the worst position ever. And then it goes back to what you were saying, that people are not people are job hopping because they don't feel like they're doing anything.
yeah,
And
or
a bit of it, I would say, is a thing that people who are like seniors to us don't actually help out anyone, because in their mind, they didn't get the help, so should they provide help to the one next to them? You know, I
yeah,
found that very
and
absurd most of the time,
sorry,
and that's why I've always tried my best to, even if it's someone that doesn't know anything, but he's willing to learn, I will give him everything that he wants to know, as much as I can give him, because there's always a give and take. This is this is this is like 2023, 2024 now. It's not the 1950s. We're not living in a time where just making money and just making ends meet was a problem. Anyone can make money if they are passionate about, and they can make decent amount of money just by doing what they're passionate about.
yeah, yeah, you pretty much hit the nail on the head with one of the things I was going to go into there. I would say that another thing that does get quite overlooked, as much as people like to promote that there's more attitude and more understanding towards it now, is that we're a generation, and or two generations, because you and I are actually two different generations. But we've been hit hard by a rise in mental health in terms of it starting to affect. And when people look back at what we see and everything, they think and they turn around and they blame that on things like social media. And yes, social media has played a factor in it. There's no denying that. But then you look around at like the other things we've grown up with, and it's like there's been new forms of terror attacks. There's been political unrest all across the world. There's been flippant wars, and it's and then there's been pressure, and like over here, we've had we my year group specifically, and the two around mine did not have the best of times in our education. And it wasn't through the fault of us, it wasn't through the fault of our teachers, it was through the fault of whoever was pulling the strings behind the scenes. Because they focused on changing around our grading and making things like and basically turning things like maths into things that everyone was starting to really loathe because um, I my class back in maths when I was doing GCSE, we weren't the best in the school. We were sort of like high middle, I would say, and there were plenty of us who were hardworking people in there. We were getting on. We were hardworking. If we struggled, we asked for help or we helped each other. Um, and then the turnaround is when you see other sources like universities or certain universities turning around and wishing for exam changes to make it harder to increase the threshold. And then you'd see the knock on effect it has there, where people who are hardworking and getting decent grades in something like that are suddenly on the verge of needing extra support or getting moved down a class because they can't keep up. And it's that And these aren't people who are messing about. These are people who work hard, and it's like they don't deserve that, and yet it still happens to them. And again, it's like through no fault with the teachers. I mean, I said to you, I said to a lot of my mates around like Europe about what happened with our exams when COVID hit, and the fact that yeah, we had ours taken away. It wasn't. We didn't have a lot of warning to that. It was suddenly we had to cram normally what would have been a little bit over 2 months left of our education to some people who we may never actually see again. And we had to cram that into, what, a week? Less? And it's like, and just the rug got pulled from under us, and there was nothing any of us could have done about it. And there was no online exam option, there was no social distancing in like schools where you could still come in and do your exams. There was just none of that. They just got completely abandoned. And whilst I don't necessarily think that actual employers maybe judge people on that, I do think that in a way, in the UK and like what were the other nations that had that? I think the Netherlands were one of them, and I think Cyprus also. But it was the case that it feels like sometimes that there's almost a universal judgment of us, or just a forgetting that our generation kind of exists, or a forgetting of what, or not what we've personally been through, but what we've been through at the ages we went through it, ages that were like significant. Like I myself, like the people who were my age, like we had like our significant 18 birthdays, and a lot of us ended up having to do them in lockdown and things. And it's just there's a lot that just gets so easily forgotten by, as you said, people who are of an older mindset sometimes. And it does, as someone who does have younger family members, it does, it's like you said, it's that almost determination that having been through that sort of thing that we've been through, as much as we may dislike the fact and are trying to actively change it by doing things like this, um, we're also almost making it a sort of mission to make sure that we don't have the same outdated attitude to the other generations that will follow us. Because something that I think a lot of us have been aware of is that we are kind of the ones who need to start changing and fixing things and making things better in any sort of way we can. And like, I know that, like, personally, I'm not a very physical person. I'm not talent. There's a lot of things that I struggle with, but encouraging like people to again like not really take the initiative, but just not be afraid to leave proverbial doors open instead of just letting someone else think, oh no, you can't do that, you can never do that, so you have to shut the door. And it's like, no, you don't need to do that. That door is open unless you decide to shut it. That opportunity will always be there for you unless you permanently decide to shut it. And if you decide to do that and that's your choice, that's fair enough. No one can really blame you for doing that. No one can, because it's your personal decision. But at the same time, if you're letting someone else put you into a position where you feel like you have to shut that door, the problem's not with you. The problem's with the other person.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Of what I have also seen in the new generation, such as yourself as well as mine, is that you are right on that. That we are scared to take the initiative most of the time. I have seen a few of my friends that were really brilliant, like they were at the top of their class and everything, like you were saying. That, but they still struggle to output because they're scared that something won't work out. This is something I know that it's affected by your surroundings more than anything. But in my in my general thing, if I ever see anyone who is in this type of situation, I always say to them that take the first step. At least try. You won't know until you try it. So I've had a few a conversation with a few people at my workplace as well, and they're all very brilliant people, right? They want to learn, and they are mixed generations. So there's someone older and someone are younger. Someone are even younger than me in the same group as yours, and they're like doing their TAFE and like technician stuff that they basically do to require a certificate and stuff like that. And I always see them, they're like, oh, I don't know how to do this, I don't know how to, like, I want to do this, I want to learn that, I want to do this. I always say to them, like, what are you afraid of? Like, what is stopping you just to take a first step? If you start taking a first step, you take a few more. And if you don't like it, you can stop. You can go into another direction. It's the same thing that you said. The doors are always open unless you decide to shut them. So it's kind of a kind of similar situation, I believe, everywhere at the moment. After COVID, we all know where the world is going. There's a lot of politics, a lot of BS that's going on everywhere at the moment, and it's causing a hike in basically everything, which is really affecting not the people that are already are in good position, people of the older generation. It is very much affecting the young people more than anything because they are the ones who have to go out and pay and work and basically work so that they can feed the generation that's before them. Even though they are still being done, there are still people that are being supported by the younger generation. If there's a gap in between that becomes too significant, then everyone will basically suffer, kind of.
Yeah, I think just going back to the education topic for a second, I think one of the other things that gets so easily forgotten, and I know because I've seen several conversations of this sort of element go on, but it's like it's when the older generations were taught different things to how we are now, because there was elements like oh, I can't remember what it was called, but like stuff like work experience and things like that. There was no education based thing that allowed for that. If you wanted to do that over here, you'd go out and like try and find something yourself. But at the exact same time, it's like you've also got the case that like sort of home kind of economic things, they're not taught anymore. And I think that's something that it is one of those weird things where there are people out there who would blame the student over the industry for that. And it's like the student didn't control what they were taught for, well, until you go to choose your choices. But even when you're choosing your choices, that's not a choice. That's not an option. So it's like the student had no control over it. And it's, I don't know, it's one of those odd things. I don't think it's as bad as it used to be, but there are still elements of it. Um, but yeah, I think the thing that I'm, because obviously what I'm personally trying to do, aside from this and sort of other content on the channel and everything, my primary focus is still my books and everything, and I'm branching out and doing a few different things that both incorporate between that and this, as well as other things that I'm trying to get a bit more interested and involved in, like the dyspraxic community. But yeah, and that's another thing. Like, and I do just want to touch on this for a second because I think this is going to be something where perspectives from upbringing might be, and just where we are in the world might be interesting in comparison. But neurodivergence and disabilities and things, there are people who, I mean, dyspraxia alone in the UK is, I don't know if it's proven, but it's been estimated to affect about 2 million people. And not only is like the education side on things like autism, ADHD never really touched on that well. Um, I think there does still need to be an encouragement of helping, or not helping, but supporting people who are disabled but are still incredibly passionate about something. Because I know a lot of people who have some form of neurodivergence, and they are passionate and good at some really cool things. But the problem is with the way society is that a lot of them are going to find it quite challenging to make something out of that because it is so not against the grain, but more outside of the box to what it's not mainstream, and yeah, it doesn't fit into like one of those regular kind of boxes. It's one that lives more outside of it, and but these things that they do, they're really talented, and you can almost picture them doing this as a career, but you also then see attitudes like the attitudes we've been talking about, and you're going to see that those attitudes to someone like this, they wouldn't only push against it, but they would completely mess up someone like this when it comes to something like their self-esteem or their ability or confidence in themselves to do anything, because it's going to be completely discouraged. And it goes again to the idea on talking about the mental health side of things. A lot of people, when they take the attitudes they do have, and it's not limited to people, it's also these organizations like the job centers and that, when they put pressure on the young people and everything to go down routes they don't want to and everything, a lot of the time you don't see it, you don't notice it, but it does have an impact on someone's mental health. And again, like I said, mental health is something that the generations are becoming, the younger generations are suffering more from at earlier ages. And it's not fun, it's not nice, but it doesn't have to be the end of the world. And but if you want to, I would say, if you want to see someone who you know doing something that they're passionate about, and also see them actually make enough from it, then actually just try and support them however you can. It may not be something you agree with, but the more you, is what you said, the more you push against it is going to be one of two things that happen. Either they are going to draw a line in the sand and refuse to budge from it, or they're going to slowly give ground and eventually capitulate to what you're wanting them to do, but they're not going to be happy about it. And in some ways, they could, in some cases, because I know that this happens as well, I've seen it in others, they can end up resenting the person who put them there or pushed them to that. And yeah, that resentment can go on for years. and it can go on unspoken, and it can lead to further consequences down the line. Because I think I think the ultimate view on anything relating to a career and following passion or what you're interested in or doing a job you don't want is that a career, a big part of a career is about earning money. But that's not the be all and end all of having a career. A career does not, you don't do a career just to earn money. You do a career for more than that. And anyone who thinks that, anyone, like you said, anyone who has the more kind of outdated mindset of doing a career to just earn money, they don't, they don't, that's not right. That's not true. You see it in, well, just a few examples. There's friends I know who are looking to go into politics. They're going to earn money, but the reason they're going into politics isn't to earn money. The reason they're going into politics is because they want to try and change things. The other is there are, and on a personal note, this is really nice to see that something that is quite incredible is the amount of people around our sort of ages who are picking up the pen or picking up the camera and starting to make short films or trying to write their own books as well because they want to, because they've been encouraged by others, or in a lot of ways not encouraged but inspired, even inadvertently.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I would agree with that point that we should always support anyone who wants to do something, even if they just want to try. Give them a chance.
Yeah, that is the main thing.
Chance is something that everyone needs at least once. If you don't give them a chance, you would never know what they were capable of. And you are true on that fact as well, that our education system is very dried into only a few branches of people, that basically it goes to the people who are mentally capable of doing heavy calculations in a very short amount of time. But I know for a fact that not everyone can do it. Even I can't do it. I was at the bottom of my class before, but I changed my way of studying. That's how I started kind of learning it, because I integrated my passion into it. But not everyone can do it, and especially with people who have a mental disability and they feel like they're being
Hmm.
pressured. And the problem with that is, like, people who have disabilities, when they get pressured, they lose more things that were very normal or common to them. Like things that they could easily do under pressure, they would not even be able to do half of it, which just makes it even more demanding kind of on them, and they become very agitated, and then people say, oh, they don't like to do this, or they don't like to do that. That's the people pushing them to this type of situation. So yes, that is correct. We should always support everyone in what they want to do. At least give them a few chances to see what they can do. And if you think that it is something that's driving them way too different and it can affect them too much, then sure, go ahead and intervene. But if you don't see anything wrong and you don't see any bad things that could happen, give them a chance. Let them do what they want to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that if you are going to, just following on from that, if you're going to intervene in someone you know because they're trying to follow their passion or everything, before you do, just take a step back and reflect on it as, are you intervening for their best interest, or are you
Hmm.
intervening because you personally don't agree with what they're doing? Because
Yeah.
especially with something in the sort of creative industry, or well, I say especially, it's not even limited to that. It's anything where you make some sort of product or something. No one is forcing you to use that product. No one is forcing you. I'm not forcing anyone to read one of my books, but I'm also asking people to not try and stop me from writing them. But because they're there for you to read. If someone wants to read my work, I am more than happy. I am ecstatic about that. But if someone's just going to turn their nose up at it and just say, no, you are making a mistake, no, you need to do this, you need to do that, then no.
That's not good.
Because
No, no.
no, it's not. And I would say that, and this is I think this is an interesting perspective that touches on what you said about the whole world going through similar things, is that the you have a lot of people who would even now push against the more out the box ideas because of the earning money side of things. But again, like what I said, a career is not just about earning money; it's about more than that. But at the same time, the the issue when you're focusing entirely on the money front is that, like you said, everyone's in the same position. It's not isolated to just one career. Everyone is in the exact same position, no matter what career they're doing, no matter if they're balancing two, doing one. They're all in the same. Self employed, employed, employing others. We're all stuck in the same thing. We're all stuck doing very similar battles. And putting pressure on someone just to change their career to do something else because you've got the mindset that this career would make them more money, when in actuality, no, it will put them in the same position. But on top of that, then they have, in a lot of ways, less stability in their own mental health or in some cases physical health. Then you're not helping them. You're not helping them in the slightest. You're making things worse for them. And it obviously this isn't isolated to the creative industry, but I would say that the creative industry is probably one that does get hit quite a bit hard by this because obviously you have, well, it tends to be a little bit of a common kind of trope in like comedy shows and things, but it's when anyone says, oh, they're trying to be an actor or something, and someone turns their nose up at it, and it's like, okay, is anyone actually giving them a chance, or are people just taking the mick out of it for no reason other than they just don't approve of it personally? And again, it's touching on similar points, but it's the case of, if someone is doing a career that they are passionate about, a career that they have proven they can do, even if they are struggling with elements of it, that doesn't give someone else the right to come in and tell them, no, you need to stop doing this because it's not going to do such and such, or you need to do this so you can get more like money or experience or things, when the jobs they're suggesting have absolutely nothing related to what you're doing. And the turnaround of that is that it's not your life. It's not your career. Ultimately, you don't have a right to do that. You can advise someone, you can support them, you can give them your honest opinion about what you do, but nothing gives you the actual right to turn around and just stop them from doing something that they are passionate about. I know that this might be a bit more of a Western perspective, going back to what you said on the family front, but it that is a perspective, though. It's that no one is forcing you to be a part of this career. So why are you judging the person from doing this career, something that they are happy, something that they are passionate about, something that, given the chance, could lead down some very good roads for that person? And yes, it is a lot of cases that a lot of this time, especially nowadays, like you said, people can be stagnant in the same job for over 10 years. It's not something that's a slow that just happens at the snap of a finger. It is a slow burn.
Mm, yes, indeed. That is 100% true. That it does burn out. And yeah, as I said, a lot of people that say that they don't want this person, like it's the same thing that you said. Basically, that people say that, oh, you should not do that because it doesn't seem like a good idea. But that's just their opinion. It's not something, it's kind of the same. Like a lot of people, just to be, a lot of people told me when I was basically heading to Australia. A lot of people are like, "Oh, you're gonna lose money. You're gonna waste money. You're gonna do this. You're gonna do that. You won't be able to do anything. You'll be stranded." I was like, I haven't even gotten there, and people are telling me stuff that I don't even want to listen to. And yeah, people always have opinion because they tried their career and it didn't work out for them and they just gave up. They didn't take the second step. They just took the first one and put their hands up and said, "Nah, I'll just do what my dad did and before his grandparents did and blah blah blah." And they would just
Or in some
follow.
cases they sorry, or in some
Yeah,
cases
yeah, yeah.
they would it's not so much that they just automatically give up on it, but it's that they've tried to pursue something, they've worked hard at it, but something's happened that's completely shaken their confidence or has been like
Yeah.
a proverbial block in their way and is completely like thrown the momentum off of them and completely like hurt their self esteem again. And
Yes.
if you've been through something like that, okay, that is harsh, that is sad, and no one deserves to have that happen to them. But
But don't enforce it on the ones after you. That's what
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
getting at.
exactly,
Because
exactly. That's what I was going to
because
say.
yeah, if something happened to you, okay, fine. But instead of stopping, like instead of basically stopping yourself and let supporting others, you try to do the same thing that happened to you to them, which is not fair in my opinion. You're not giving them a chance. Maybe what you wanted to be, they would be more greater than you. Maybe they have better, and because of you they might have a better chance at it because you're there to support them, you know.
Maybe I'm on a bit too much of the young side to jump into this bit of, well, I say a common trope. I don't know how common it is. It's more of a phrasing, but it's the case of you should strive to give more opportunities to those following you than what you had.
I would say I am in that spectrum that I can. I've
Yeah,
gotten a bit of
yeah.
experience in this. In a few months time when I started 3D printing, I was doing it by myself, right? I started it by myself and I seriously didn't knew what to do. I had no idea. I never done anything before this, and this is not something that you are taught in any university at this point. It is a subject. It's a selective subject, but because it doesn't in universities, you don't see a full page of what you can do with it. So they just basically put it into a page in the whole book just to let you know that this is a thing as well. And now we'll move on. So when I got into it, I got a few people that I know that are now basically working with me, and I went around. I asked a lot of people that if they wanted to help me with this, and the first thing was people, because people were not passionate about, they didn't usually care. But amidst that, I did find a few people that had nothing to do with this career, but they were intrigued by it, and they were like, "Oh, so you do this? Oh, do you do that? Oh, is that how you do it?" And I said, and instead of just usually what I have gotten from other people is that if this type of question people start asking, they usually shrug it off and don't tell them the full story. Whereas if I see someone who is interested or curious about something and I know about it, I will try to give them my knowledge on it as much as I can. So they're more intrigued by it. Maybe they'll move more. Maybe they'll learn about new things. Maybe they'll get passionate about it. Maybe they will develop a career out of it very easily. And that's what usually happens. Recently, I had a guy that is basically kind of like my employee, I would say. So he helps me out with a lot of stuff. He's more of a IT person, but he's very really interested in 3D printing. And because he was, I was like, oh, okay. Do you want to do this? Should I train you? Do you want to know how this works? And he was like, oh yeah, that would be great. And yeah, he's been learning a lot and a lot and a lot, and now he's getting even more curious. So he himself said that even though I'm from IT, I do want to know about this as well, so that I can work and be more productive as well, because it's something that I can learn very, which I can learn from like you. And so I know I'm a bit digressing at the moment, but yeah, that's how you basically develop interest in other people and they just start learning. And money, in my opinion, is something that always follows when you follow your passion. I know it's a very steep mountain to climb at the start, but I believe that if you keep at it, you will always make money. So that's is never a problem, in my opinion, at least.
Well, I would say that we are probably near it. Well, we're getting. We've still got a few minutes, but we're nearing about an hour mark. But just got a couple more
Mhm.
little bits.
Yeah,
Is there, outside of you being passionate about it, is there any standout reason? If there is any standout reasons why you do what you do as your career and as your side stuff with the 3D printing, is there any particular reasons why you do those things?
I would say just out of curiosity. I've always been passionate about machines. And just a small story. So my mom had a Singer machine, right? You know, a Singer swing machine. It was the fully automatic one with a lot of
Yeah.
discs and stuff like that. You would insert stuff in it. And I was intrigued by it a lot. And as a kid, I always saw her whenever she took it out. I would like look at the parts or the mechanism that would just like sink into each other and would make this machine run. That was the curiosity that I always had and I still have. And I got into engineering because of it, and that's how I got into 3D printing as well. Because it is something that I've always driven me like, how does this thing work? That's what usually got me to where I am today. Even I'm very bad at math, very bad. But I learned and started doing calculation based on what I wanted to know from it. Like if there's a formula, I would say, okay, so this formula, I know it's just written in maths, but where is it actually applied to? Then I looked into what things I have learned in my university and as well as my all the engineering stuff and back in college and stuff like that. And I always go through them and check, okay, so this is why you use it. So this is how you can find with this formula. I never learned any of them. I still don't know. I still look them up on Google. But I still know that if I am stuck, I can relate something to something and then I would know what it would do. The same thing with any of the things and choices that I've made up to here. It's just curiosity about machines. That's all.
All right. And okay, now one thing that I've put in as a is probably the one of the only bits of all of this that is actually scripted, and it's a little fun final question that I'm going to do at each of the episodes, and it's probably going to be the same question just to keep it fair. Um, but if you were offered a job tomorrow that paid you over a or around like $1 million Australian, um, but the role was something that you had never really had any desire in, no real interest. But as a further note, it also meant that you had to give up working what you're passionate about. Would you take that offer?
There's a lot of factors in that that can alter my decision, but in the end, even if I do take up that offer, I would not stay in it for a long time because I would always go where I would be more passionate about something. I would always go towards where I can learn new things about what I want to learn. And I already know kind of with my experiences up until now that money always follows you. So I'm usually confident in myself that if I do something that I'm passionate about, money will always follow me. So that's like a second priority to me. So no, I don't think I would take it because it would not make me happy. It would make me stressed out a lot.
All right. Well, I would say that that probably brings this episode to an end, unless there is some final notes that you would like to add in, or anything that you maybe want to advertise or plug. Because if you obviously send me a link, I can link it in the channel description, the video
So
description rather.
yeah, a shout out would be good, but I would just say to anyone that always the only note that I can tell to someone is just support people around you. You don't need to go far. Just look around you and you'll find someone who will very much appreciate you just saying to them, you can do this. That's all.
Well, um, on that note, we will bring this episode to an end. Thank you very much for being the first guest, and you never know, we might circle back and might have you as a guest again in the future, maybe with another person, possibly. Um,
Would be good.
so, in general, thank you all for listening. I know that, well, obviously, as a podcast, it was going to probably be longer than most of my videos that have been so far. Um, but thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the video, please comment and like, and above all, for something like this, share. Share with anyone who you think might be interested in listening to this, branching out, because as another note, we will be looking for future guests. We have the first few lined up, but after that, we will be stretching further afield to look for them. But thank you all for joining, and
Thank you.
until next time, welcome to the channel and welcome to the world of Fellowmind books.